you guys know that if you have kids, the teachers in Britain believe that it's influencers like Andrew Tate that are responsible for a rise in misogyny showing up in their classrooms now. So this was from a new study that was done. It says social media influencers, I'm going to put it up on screen there, are fueling an increase in misogyny and sexism in schools, according to a new poll by teachers unions. Well, there's the first problem. Am I right? Teachers
Yeah,
unions?
absolutely.
So
You're not only are you asking, you're asking all women, and they're all union members.
It says
That's totally going to give you a realistic understanding of the world.
almost 3 in 5 teachers said that they believe social media use has a negative effect on behaviors in school. The poll of 5,800 teachers in the UK found influencers and self-proclaimed misogynist Andrew Tate was named number 1 by this poll of women. So I guess young boys everywhere are just tuning into Andrew Tate and turning into huge misogynists.
Well, they have it completely the other way around, which it's school kids, as they're rebelling against the culture that they're, growing up in, which is overbearing, which is very effeminate.
And schools are designed to
they're
cater to
suffocating.
women.
Yeah.
And so they're rebelling, and then the influencers are simply filling the void of the content that they'd want to see. So it's the complete other way around. It's the schools are, and then the influencers have to tap into that energy.
But I mean, think about how ridiculous that is, though. You're going with an absolutely incredibly narrow segment of the population, right? You're not asking parents.
Right.
You're not asking, like, hey, what do you, are kids this way? What do you see at home? Blah, blah, blah. You're asking specific people with a specific job that have a specific opinion, and they all share the same opinion. You're not going to get a variety of different takes from union member teachers. Yeah. They're all, it's like asking the same person 1,000 times, And
the press does this over and over again, and it's so infuriating where they this is their way of dismissing concerns among the population, is like, or they're chastising far right and populist movements. It's like,
they list populist. It's so funny because I was watching this video today, Shoe on Head's video about the dark history of USAID, and they talk about and they talk about
Kudos,
how
June.
USAID was originally designed to stop communism, but later was used against right-wing and populist influences here in America. And this is kind of the offshoot of that, is they really do fear the idea of populism because we've lived in like this neoliberal society for so long that they can't imagine any viewpoint being able to get traction outside of the viewpoints that they already had because they had tight control over the media, and the internet has democratized that and given other messages a voice. Now, the offshoot of that, the problem is you're going to get terrible influences there as well. But what that says to me is that what created this market? Why is this a need that needs to be catered to at all? And the problem is most people these days, they don't have the ability to be introspective enough to look within and be like, what is it that we lack that made this so enticing to other people, to younger generation?
And one of the factors is at least incredibly simple. If there's a problem with young boys are raised predominantly, at least in the United States, I'm not sure about the UK, but there has never been a larger percentage of young men that are raised by a single mother, and all of their teachers are women.
Yeah.
If there is a problem with young boys, it is a lack of good masculine men teaching them how to behave. Now, granted, I personally have my doubts that Andrew Tate is a good role model.
Yeah.
I have significant doubts about that.
Absolutely.
But Andrew Tate fills a role that is not being filled by parents. Part of the reason is because all teachers and women are raising kids. And another part of the reason is because men have stepped back and allowed their wives to run the roost. They're like, honey, what do you want me to do? Honey, how are we doing this? Honey, how? And they don't have actual input because they ascribe to the, happy life, happy wife, happy life. Mm-hmm. And they don't assert themselves at all. So they're not teaching their sons how to be boys. Mm-hmm. They're allowing their wives to teach their sons how to be, broken girls.
Yeah. And I feel like that kind of like I was speaking earlier about the Hollywood's trope about college being the fix for everything. The happy wife, happy life trope is also something that Hollywood has done for a very long time. The problem is back when they used to do it, the men involved weren't always the the doormats that you see now. They were still somebody who could change a car tire and change the oil on his car and take care of things around the house. He just happened to defer to his wife in certain things, and that is now combined with the fact that we've emasculated men and we've gotten rid of male-only spaces and taken away these things that help men. It's all kind of come together to make one big problem for everybody. Here's what some of the quotes in there. This one says, this is from a teacher. I have had boys refuse to speak to me and speak to a male teaching assistant instead because I am a woman and they follow Andrew Tate and think he's amazing with all his cars and women. These were 10-year-olds, the teacher says. I don't know if I buy that 10-year-olds are watching Andrew Tate. But I can't. I guess I can't tell her she's wrong.
I remember when I saw this story, there was a great commentary on it. It's something these teachers are missing and this isn't like this is whatever. But like there's studies about 40% of school children in the UK come from a Muslim background, and so obviously they're going to have a little bit different perspective on female teachers coming from that background, and they're like, well, it must be Andrew Tate, and it's like, no, that's not actually.
Maybe it's not.
Yeah.
Well, this one says. This one says another teacher said in a secondary English class last year, a group of boys opted, despite discouragement, to write a persuasive essay on why Andrew Tate is the GOAT, which included praise of his views that women are a man's property. All of the parents were contacted and they were appalled. So the parents aren't like, that's the other thing is like parents are not expected to even like monitor their kids' internet use or try to curb this behavior by actually having discussion with their kids about good and bad influences. And that's an issue as well. Influencers are raising your kids just like your toddlers are being raised by Coco Melon.
Yeah.
Right? And that's not helpful in the slightest at all.
Yeah, parents have a responsibility to raise their kids. Like you can't let your iPad do it. You can't let the school do it. You can't, just offload it to someone else. You have to actually be involved with your kids' lives.
So here's another one. This was this follow-up article. It continues from The Guardian. It says other reports instances boys of barking at female staff and blocking doorways as a result of Andrew Tate videos. Another teacher said pupils watch violent and extreme pornographic material. Their attention spans have dropped. They read lots of fake news and sensationalized stories that make them feel empowered, like they know better than the teacher. So I'm guessing that the teachers are maybe in the same wavelength as that lady who was on IRL last night. I have no idea if they're using fake news in that context. But what is it that has been missing for the raising of boys that has made this market so appealing? So I've told this before. Like, I'm 38. I'm a millennial, and the time period that I grew up in had a lot of messaging that was, to women, you can do anything you want. You can be the president. You can be the CEO. You can have everything. You don't have to sacrifice one thing for another. You're going to be able to do whatever you want and smash gender roles. We just did a story yesterday about Meghan Markle, like getting caught, like supposedly, allegedly plagiarizing, like this feminist piece of this feminist book about women's empowerment and smashing gender roles. The thing is that message was already prominent when I was in high school and junior high, but nobody really talked about what boys were supposed to do with that. You're preaching a message that drastically changes the gender norms for an entire population, and you've only really given advice to one of those demographics and just kind of asked the other demographic deal with it without telling them what is it that you're supposed to deal with, what is a good way to do so. And they've been essentially told to sit down and shut up for the last however many years. And now what they're seeing is, they've raised a new generation of boys who aren't adherent to the same neoliberal talking points. And the problem with that is it's bleeding through into the media they're seeing now, because it's not controlled by Hollywood and the news companies that used to do so. Look, if you want to go and watch those movies, Hollywood's still making them. They're still making the girl boss stuff, but even that ends up getting rejected because nobody wants to see it anymore. It's being roundly rejected by the millennial men now, who seem to have no interest in watching it, though they might be quiet about it because they don't want to be yelled at from someone their own age about how they're not feminist enough, oddly enough making them the problem too. And the next generation has no qualms with ignoring these things the way that the millennials leaned into it. So how do you fix it?
Yeah, I mean, like Phil was hitting on, I mean, the big thing is fathers, and it's just this view of school as daycare needs to stop, because that's what's leading to this ultimately. But something else, and they hit on it in this article at the end of what you're reading, and I actually agree with this, is they attribute the representation to them of the difference of power between men and women through pornography. And I actually do agree with that, because the overwhelming majority of men in this country and in the Western world are addicted to pornography. And yeah, that completely warps your view of sex, it completely warps your view of women. And naturally, that's going to bleed into your philosophy or your politics and that sort of thing. And yeah, I think it's really important, and no one's talking about it.
It has a drug-like effect in the same. So I've told this story before. Like, I've been sober for quite a few years now, and one of the most intense parts of substance abuse is that, especially if you're doing like opiates or benzos, it completely destroys your desire to go out and create or to fulfill. So, you know the feeling like you go out, you wake up every day, you go to work, you go to the gym, you go skate in my case, or you go do some hobby, and then you go about your day and you come home, you shower, you get ready for bed. There is like a sense of fulfillment that brings about the end of the day for a person. The problem is with drugs, what it does is it fills that void and makes it so you don't need to achieve anything to feel like you can bring your day to a close. So that's a huge part of it. And pornography does the same thing. So when you talk about the fact that, you know, men have gone their whole lives without approaching a woman, have never actually attempted to be in a relationship, and women are wondering what the hell is going on because they're being counter signaled the other way about what they're even supposed to do in that case. In a lot of ways, you would say that the access to pornography has filled that need in a very destructive way.
Yeah, because it's like, why would I talk to that girl? I have a girl on my phone at home that I can, you know, do whatever. And it's like, I mean, you often see when people say, oh, men aren't approaching women anymore, they attribute it to, well, you know, it's the Me Too movement, people are scared. And that's partially true. But again, no one ever speaks about it. And it's like the pornography thing is the big contributor, because men know that, like you said, that desire, that urge can be fulfilled in 10 minutes when they get home.
Not only that, there's also a far higher cost than there's ever been, right? Like if you go and approach a woman, right, and she decides that she wants to mock you, she's going to do it on the internet.
Yeah.
And it's going to be, and again, the bullying in high school, it doesn't end when you go home. It's on the internet. It's on Instagram. All these people. So the cost has been raised significantly. The social cost, right? To dudes that might be awkward, that might not know how to ask her, you know, that might say something wrong, you know, that might approach the wrong girl, that just decides that she's going to be mean because women don't behave like men. Right. If they want to, the way that they act out aggression is by embarrassing people, is by destroying someone's reputation. So women will do that. They'll go ahead and they'll be like, oh, well, you know, here you go. So the actual value or the actual risk versus reward, it's astronomical for men now. Well, for young men.
Yeah, and I agree, but I also think like there has to be an additional factor, which is why I think pornography is changing the chemical.
Oh, I'm not.
No, and I know you're in agreement. Because like if your bloodline is on the line, like being mocked or being rejected is not going to be a factor. There has to be and I know you're in total agreement. It's like there has to be something happening at the biological level to men that's altering that. Because like I said, if your bloodline's on the line, you're not worried about, you know, what if she says no? It's in the back of everyone's heads because the majority of men are addicted. It's
I don't know if kids think of it like that. They get even.
Well, there's a biological urge to procreate,
and so that gets fulfilled by the pornography or whatever. And it's only going to get worse because AI, you know, AI is going to be able to fill that role. Because nowadays, very soon, AI is going to be able to remember things. So you're going to have an AI girlfriend that you'll text. You know, maybe you don't have the robot
I mean, that's already happening.
robot.
The chat bots and
Well,
stuff.
I mean, because that was the
absolutely.
fear, is that pornography up until now has addressed the biological desire. It can, or it can fulfill the biological desire. Going forward, it can start filling that emotional desire. That's absolutely petrifying, because so many men are going to take the buyout. A lot of men are already taking the buyout.
So I want to go back to what you said about the risk that it costs men if they approach a woman. So the meme where it's like, what do you mean you're cyberbullied? Just close the computer.
Yeah.
I don't know if that necessarily applies anymore,
No, it doesn't.
as more and more of your life is integrated into the computer.
Yep.
Like there may have been a time where it's like somebody said something mean to you on the internet, you could just close your computer and never think about it again. But now it's being said to you on some social media platform, which is thereby an extension of who you are. Mm-hmm. So somebody says something crazy about you on Instagram or X. Look, that's your means of communication, like you or your Facebook, right? That's how you stay in touch with your family. That's how you stay in touch with your friends, especially if you're a boomer. Like, you can't just walk away from that now.
Yeah.
It's not the same thing anymore. And that's why I say that we were not meant to be connected to everyone all the time, because back in the day, look, the joke I always make is like, look, very few people actually got into like arguments or disagreements on a daily basis in their real life. Right? You went to work. Maybe you got into it with your boss once in a while. Maybe you got into it with a friend, like drunk at a party. But that's not the same thing as like you and your friend having like a back and forth, hash it out fight over some ideological stance yet. That's not how the world works.
And your friends weren't likely to use whatever insult they could possibly come up with too.
Correct.
Like, doesn't matter if it's true or not, doesn't matter, what it is, whatever they can say to get a reaction to put you off your, off balance, someone on the internet will do, I'm lucky in the fact that like I've been on the internet for longer than I want to admit. So it's like, and I've been in the public eye for longer than I admit, putting something out there for people to criticize. So I've been I'm largely, very callous to insults from the internet. But a kid is, 14, 15, 16 years old.
Expecting them to be able to handle that is insane.
No,
and they can't.
They can't.
I mean, you see the sky-high depression and suicide rates. It's obvious what's going on here.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.